Okay, so let's now. Okay, so let's now talk about proxy workflow, because if you are going to be using one of these raw formats, it probably stands to reason that it'll be helpful for you if you use the built-in proxy workflow, because it will enable you to shoot in that raw format to the CF Express card, but then record a lower quality proxy to the SD card. So let's have a look and see how that works. The first thing I'm going to do is going to go into my raw ST, because I think this is probably the most common workflow. So I'm recording 8K, 25 frames. We've got our big 1650 megabits per second. And then if I go across to the third section of this recording media setup page, you'll see I have this second card record functions menu available. So I'm going to grab an SD card, I'm going to pop it in the camera, and then we're going to see all the various different options that we have available to us and how we can use them. I'm going to use these AV Pro SD cards. These are the Angelbird ones. Very high V90 read write speeds, 300 megabytes per second. I'm going to pop that in the SD slot on the camera. And if I go to the first option, we have recording the main format to the CF Express card. So that little icon, it is important that you understand the difference between the icons. So the icon with the little sort of dashes along the top, that's your CF Express card. The icon where it says number 2, proxy record, it's a rectangle with a little corner taken off. That's your SD card. So in other words, recording the main format to CF Express, which is what would happen in each of these cases, and then a proxy to the SD card, a sub-recording format to the SD card, or just an audio recording file to the SD card in the last option. If we choose 1 main and 2 proxy, so the second card, the SD card record format, you can see I can choose whether that's XFAVC or H.264. They're both considered to be low overhead, simple to play back, and support the correct resolutions for most of this stuff. If I go to XFAVC, you can see it's going to create a 2K 24 megabits per second long GOP file. That's what we're going to get in terms of our proxy. If I go to the H.264, I get 2K 9 megabits per second, 25 frames per second, a 16-bit AAC audio. So there's a couple of different options with each of these. Now, the proxy record color conversion, it will essentially convert the color. So if you were recording obviously raw, they're essentially the color gamut isn't determined until you're in post and you choose that. Whereas with the proxy, we don't have that benefit. So it needs to put a color profile to this proxy. So it's just going to conform it to whatever the custom picture is set to. So if your custom picture is set to Canon Log 3, but you're recording raw, it will actually be Canon Log 3 on the proxy, whereas the raw obviously can change. It can become something else. If I go to the sub-record, the big difference here is I have more control. So I have more codecs available to me. So for example, I can do my H.265 ones as well here. Plus I can choose a different resolution. So I can also choose whether or not it's long GOP or intraframe if I'm using the XFAVC options. So I might, for example, want a 4K long GOP proxy for this particular mode. Remember, the RAW is going to be 8K because it's the whole sensor readout. So that would be DCI 8K. So it makes sense to use a matching resolution one. That's why it's the only options that it gives you. If I go to H.265, you can see again 4K or 2K. So it's the same aspect ratio. And I can change my audio format as well. So with the sub-record, you're getting to the point where actually your proxy isn't so much a low overhead offline, more as just a separate sub recording. That's the key difference between the proxy and the sub. Got more control with the sub recording. You may still choose to use this as a proxy, which is confusing, but that's the distinction that in the menu it makes between the proxy and the sub record. If I go to the last option here, this one's very sort of specific. I can't think there'd be many reasons why you might come to choose this, but what it will do is it'll take the 4 channels of internal channels that you normally get when you're recording audio with video, and it will create a separate single consolidated channel, 8 kilohertz, so very low quality 16-bit WAV file to the SD card. It will stop automatically after 6 hours of recording. I guess it's some kind of sort of lightweight audio proxy that might be necessary for some kind of workflows. Not one I've ever come across that I've needed, but it is there as the second card record functions, the last option in there. So to my mind, the main record sub-record is the most useful one. And that's where certainly you're going to be able to get most amount of options in terms of record format, resolution, and audio format as well. Of course, these options are only as useful as the workflow that follows, and it's reassuring that when you are using this proxy workflow, you are going to be getting matched names. So the SD card and the CF Express card are going to have files with the same name on them, which is going to make life much easier when you're doing an offline-online workflow. And it will also obviously be matching timecode as well, which again is very important if you are creating an offline edit and then linking to the online media at the end. But a very useful workflow with any of the options, to be honest, but particularly if you are shooting 8K RAW and you want something that you can sort of send to editorial for a lightweight, more offline friendly workflow. Now, before I leave this menu, it's probably also worth just pointing out that there is a relay recording mode here, which will essentially fill up my memory card, and then when it's full, automatically switch over to the SD card, or vice versa, depending on which card you've got selected initially, and then continue recording to that card. That's great if you're doing a very long event and you want to be able to just leave the camera and utilize the maximum recording duration you have of both card slots in the camera. There's also a double slot recording mode, which if you're shooting something that's, once in a lifetime, there's no way that you would want to risk having a card go down, then you can double slot record, which will be recording simultaneously to both cards and essentially giving you a built-in backup at the same time.